Implementing Manufacturing 4.0. Well, joining us today to speak about that, Jake Barr, CEO of Blue World Supply Chain Consulting. Jake, great to see you once again. Welcome.
Thank you. Happy to be back.
Jake, there's no doubt about it that we are hearing an awful lot about Manufacturing 4.0 these days. Well, walk us through that. Just what is that really all about? What's going on there?
You know, there are so many levels to it, and depending on the industry vertical that you work in or support, there's just a host of misinformation. The reality is it falls down into really four pillars or four buckets of work that if you focus time and attention against, you'll get some improvement. So I describe it as it's simple as, hey, look, manufacturing has always been about productivity. Okay, so fundamentally, that's the first pillar. So there's an element of the work that's about productivity. The second is really, think of it as, how can I flex the operation? So it's flexibility. You know, in the markets in which most companies compete today, they're having an agility problem. So the ability to turn the equipment around, to shorten changeovers, to actually automate some of the processes where there's wait and dwell time is really critical. All right. Mm-hmm. The third, and I hate to say it, but in this day and age, we still have a quality problem with the performance of the operations. It's not only yield, but it's scrap levels, it's the performance characteristics of the product, whether they're holding up to muster for the quality parameters you want to put in place. Mm-hmm. And then finally, there's a speed element. Let's be very realistic about, you're running a giant going out of business sale today if you're not improving the speed of the operation to deal with what I call the Amazon effect, right? So sure, Amazon effect affects retail segments more than others, but there's a similar effect going on in multiple verticals where a need to amp up our ability to speed the response of how the entire ecosystem can work.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Let me ask you about this, because clearly one of the issues that we're hearing about in supply chain these days is the challenge that the pandemic has caused. It's affecting us in any number of areas, you know, from sourcing to transportation to warehousing, et cetera, et cetera. Is it having a negative, difficult, challenging impact on manufacturing itself? Walk us through that.
It absolutely is. You know, to strip the topic naked here, manufacturing at its core has been affected globally. And there's not a single industry vertical that hasn't been affected. That's both life science and pharma, it's consumer product, it's consumer staples, it's industrial, it's retail apparel, it's fast fashion, automotive, all of them have had a problem. Now, you can say, well, wait a minute, is the pandemic really the reason? Truthfully, all it's done is expose the gaps that were there and amplified them. Mm-hmm. The inability to quickly understand what the performance of my lines is like. Where am I on yield rates today? Mm-hmm. How much of my schedule has been completed? Have we had center line performance on quality? Scheduling of my people, the ability to roll when I have an unexpected disruption in a material supplier. So I like to say, yes, there's consistent problems in manufacturing. The pandemic has, in fact, had an issue, but it's really been amplifying. This is not a problem that just popped up.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Somebody who is unfamiliar with the issue but has heard a bit about Manufacturing 4.0 really wants to know something about pain points, about opportunities. What are you going to tell them?
I like to tell them that at its core, while there are technologies involved, think of it as, if you're trying to improve productivity, you're thinking about, well, how do I put in robotics, right? If you're thinking about flexibility, it's called, well, how do I make the process equipment more agile so that I can do change out of parts and faster. But I describe it in a simplistic way of saying what we're really dealing with is the fact that inside the walls of the plant, we've had operational technologies for years. PLCs on lines, readers, heat sensors, quality viscosity measurement tools. But what we've really had are 1,000 little islands that didn't connect and didn't work together, let alone, and importantly, could they communicate externally outside the plant. So I describe it in its most simple terms as what Manufacturing 4.0 is attempting to do is lift the game of the plant and concurrently connect it information-wise outside the plant.
In a word, where are we with 4.0, implementing it? What's the progress to date? How can we speed it up, accelerate it? What do you say?
I am a strong believer in describing the progress to date as being like a splatter gun. There are certain companies in certain verticals who have already made significant progress. But I'll tell you that the backdrop across all of them is that they are overcomplicating the issue. They're trying to swallow the elephant in one bite as opposed to saying, what do I really need today to just make a small scale improvement of productivity? What do I really need today to really help edge my flexibility in the operation better? How can I connect the way I'm viewing material flow to understand quality output better? So, best described as some progress, but there's been I call it an over embellishment of the journey where folks are paralyzed. So you have many companies you walk into and you start working with them to lay out a crawl, walk, run plan. I don't have to conquer the world to make small scale improvements. I just need to make some focused project efforts now and then continue to build and roll upon them.
Final question. Briefly tell me what it is that Blue World can do for its clients to help them on this journey.
Yeah, what we try and do first is come in and help them assess where are the pain points. And there are tons of them. But more importantly, prioritize. And prioritize with the lens of the outside in. So, yeah, we could work on 12 things, but what are the one or two that'll actually help us in either service performance to the channel partner, improving the flow rate, the material flow rate with a material supplier, simplifying the automation on the floor so you can get a tweak in the productivity of the folks that you already have. So it isn't about just making gigantic leaps on a project. It's about prioritizing and sequencing. So that's one. The second is we then, in many cases, help connect them with who are the players, especially when there's a technology piece to come to bear. Who should they be spending time with? Because literally there are hundreds that will hang out a shingle and say, hey, we do business on Manufacturing 4.0. True, but how do you connect to the bigger ecosystem problem you're trying to solve?
Great drill down into this important topic. Jake, I'm so glad that you found the time to sit down and speak with us about it today.
Happy
Thank
to
you
help.
so much.
Thank you.
That's Jake Barr, Blue World Supply Chain Consultant, speaking with us today about implementing Manufacturing 4.0. Thank you for watching.